lesson, what you need to do is answer the question, how does Doyle present the character of Neville Sinclair? So we've just been looking at how does Doyle present the character of Isa Whitney. That's a very similar character, and the question is phrased in exactly the same way. So the way that Anastasia and Fatima structured their answers, you can directly steal ideas from how they did that. Start with one main idea, your impression of the character. Choose interesting evidence and refer to the methods and the impact that they're having, and then link it back to the writer's intention. So, this is the extract that I want you to write about, and I thought it might be useful for some of you if I say what I would say about this extract and just kind of model for you what those ideas might be, because some of you struggled a little bit with idea generation last week. So, I start by thinking, okay, well, what does this extract tell me about Neville Sinclair? So if I just read it to you quickly, it says, it's Neville speaking. It's his confession at the end of the narrative. So he's talking to Sherlock Holmes and he's revealing all about the fact that he pretended to be a beggar. He dressed up like Hugh Bond and he put the sort of plaster on his face and he put makeup on and he did all these things um, because he earned a lot of money begging and he pretended to be someone he wasn't. And this is the sort of part where he really explains why he did it. Well, you can imagine how hard it was to settle down to arduous work. Arduous means like difficult, challenging. At £2 a week, when I knew I could earn as much in a day by smearing my face with a little paint, laying my cap on the ground, and sitting still. It was a long fight between my pride and the money, but the dollars won at last, and I threw up reporting and sat day after day in the corner which I had first chosen, inspiring pity by my ghastly face and filling my pockets with coppers. Only one man in London knew my secret. He was the keeper of a low den in which I used to lodge in Swandam Lane, where I could every morning emerge as a squalid beggar and in the evenings transform myself into a well-dressed man about town. So, what do I think of Neville when I read that? Well, my impression of him is not particularly positive. So I wrote this little list, and that's kind of what I do when I'm starting to write a paragraph. I think, okay, what do I think of this person? I think he comes across as pretty lazy, quite careless, greedy. He's motivated by money. He doesn't want to work hard. He thinks, well, if I can get more money for doing less work, then I'll do that. That's literally what he's saying. Um, he's manipulative. He's pretending to be someone he's not. He's manipulating people by making them feel pity for something that's a disguise, that's not real. He's devious. He's effective in that. He does well at this, and he's villainous. I think at the end, this idea of the transformation and the fact that he's very, very successfully living this double life and making money off of people's sympathy is pretty villainous. So yeah, I've got that list there. So any of those adjectives you could steal for your points. You could say, well, I think that Doyle presents Neville as quite lazy and careless, or I think Doyle presents Neville as a very greedy man, or I think Doyle presents Neville as a villain. So any of those you could steal, or you could try and sort of pull a few of them together. Now, how does he do this? Why do I think that? Well, these are some of the things that I picked out. So the bits in red are probably the bits of evidence that I would comment on. Um, so the adjective choices, for example, arduous. So I'd really pick on that because the word arduous, you can imagine how hard it was to settle down to arduous work. It really hyperbolizes his laziness, the fact that he doesn't want to work hard. Um, the reason he would work is to make money, and he's not really interested in it otherwise. And I think you could really unpick that adjective arduous and refer to the fact that that shows his laziness because he's rejecting it. He's rejecting hard work. He's rejecting anything difficult or challenging. He's very much a character who's taking an easy path. Um, and then also the adjective squalid and well dressed at the end. So we've got this juxtaposition that you could also refer to where we've got the expectations versus reality, we've got reputation versus deviance. So reputation and expectations are well-dressed man about town. That colloquial phrase, that slang phrase, represents the kind of expectation of gentlemen that they look the part, they are well dressed, they're refined, man about town, they're sociable, they're sort of they've got this the face of status and society. And then that completely contrasting with the squalid beggar. So putting those two, the juxtaposition shows that he's literally living two lives. And I think the adjective well dressed and the adjective squalid really emphasizes that contrast, the fact that he's two complete opposites. And that would help me demonstrate how manipulative and devious he is and how villainous he is because he's able to go between the two. I would then also probably link that to the verb choice to transform. There's something almost magical in that word to transform, and I think again I would link that to his sort of villainy and his manipulation, that he's almost able to kind of um, he's got the sense of power that he can take on these roles and wear these different masks. And I think it creates this real sense of suspicion and distrust um, about the kind of person that he is and the morals that he has, and his sort of character is really flawed as a result. So those are probably the quotations I would refer to. I might also refer to the metaphorical language, like the dollars won at last, the kind of personification there, because that represents the fact that he's greedy. The references to money all the way through, like the £2, the dollars, um, the pockets with coppers, like there's references to money all the way through, and I think that it just emphasizes the fact that he's so motivated by money, he's willing to sort of do this odd, devious, manipulative behavior. Um, so why does Doyle do this? Why does Doyle create a character that lives such a double life and is so extreme? And I think there's a couple of reasons you could say. I think that Doyle is spotlighting that this was the reality, that men really were doing this. Remember that William Gladstone, the Prime Minister, was going to brothels. He was in Parliament by day, arguing about rules and laws to do with prostitutes, and really having a firm, hard line on that. And then at night, he was visiting those brothels himself. Like these, there were literally these dual lives happening. The sense of duality was really within society, and so I think Doyle is spotlighting that. He's showing it to us. He's showing it in all of its kind of grotesque, shocking glory. So maybe he's trying to shock his reader or kind of make them face the truth. Um, so therefore, he's kind of mirroring what he sees in the world around him. Um, and I think because I think there is a sense of, I think that he wants us to see Neville in a negative light. I don't think we're supposed to be impressed by Neville. That's not my impression. You might disagree. I don't think we're supposed to be impressed by Neville. I think we're supposed to really, feel this kind of mistrust and negativity towards him. So for me, it's a critique of this kind of behaviour. The fact that Neville is confessing this, and he's in this kind of pitiful, sorrowful state, and he's let his wife down, and he's in jail. He's just kind of, it's this warning really of where this kind of double life could take you, and how it could really kind of almost ruin your life. Like he almost ruins everything. It almost goes down for murder. Um, so yeah, I think it is a critique, it is a warning. You could argue, if you wanted to, that it's mocking and it's satirical, and actually Sherlock Holmes and the police um, they don't charge Neville. He doesn't get punished. So you could argue that actually Doyle thinks that it's quite funny or quite silly, or but from this extract and from my impression, I think it's more critical. Hopefully that gives you a sense of the things you can say. Feel free to steal any of these ideas for your assessment, or for the paragraph below. If you're really not sure about that paragraph, have a rewatch of this, steal some of these ideas, and just practice writing them up, because that'll be really, really good practice for next week. Hope this helps.